Yeah. So this is like best scenes or best opening scenes.
That's what I thought, right? We're talking about opening
Yeah,
scenes.
best. I would like to say like best opening sequences, because if you say best opening scene, it
Okay,
would be
that's
like,
fine. Sequence is fine.
That's
I don't.
actually a good point. That's a good lead into the conversation. Maybe we don't have to
yeah,
have an intro. best
uh,
best opening sequence. Because to me, one of the big ones that is like a very uh, my personal favorite is Once Upon a Time in the West.
Ah, you got it first. Okay.
damn it, you
Yeah.
beat us to it.
No, I mean it's the elephant in the room,
It
and
is.
the
It is.
issue
It's
because
fantastic.
I've seen, like, I've come across these posts online where what's the best opening scene, and the problem is that the best opening scene of Once Upon a Time in the West is we can almost do a whole episode just on that.
Right.
Um, the opening scene is amazing. It's a little slow until it gets going, until harmonica gets off the train. But the setup and the credits and all that's great, and then of course, like, once they have the showdown is great too, but then what follows it, uh if you combine that with the scene that follows, with the bada bang bang bang, like with the like the birds and everything, they're trying to hunt them, and then it leads into what probably is the greatest villain introduction in film history, Henry Fonda. That sequence, that 20 minutes, it's like 20 minutes or something.
That's still fair.
It's like that. If you put those two things together, I don't think anything comes close. If you just go with the credit scene and the showdown, that's still amazing. But it's to me, it's the combination of those two that really is just hasn't been matched.
Yeah, and the just that line of, well, now that you mentioned my name, or now that you called me, or now that you've said my name, just over whether or not to kill the kid. It's like, oh, fuck, okay, it's just punctuated so well.
Yeah.
uh, no, no, that is masterclass filmmaking, and that's also why I mean, I don't know if I'm really in the minority on this, but I know that for a lot of years I've been saying that Once Upon a Time in the West is actually my favorite Sergio Leone film, even above uh, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I
Oh, but that's a good lead-in, because and maybe we can hop movies this way. But to me, like Once Upon a Time in the West, like that opening, it borderline reminds me of, and this is another one, like all-time great sequence, is it's almost too good in the way that the Saving Private Ryan opening
Mm.
sequences, where the
Mm.
like you're like, where we have nowhere to go. It's like, like it's there's a bit of a dip for the rest of the movie. But I feel like in there's definitely a few other great sequences in Once Upon a Time in the West. It's not as problematic as Saving Private Ryan, and even Saving Private Ryan has a few battles later on that do well. I need to
The movie's
rewatch it.
outstanding, even though you're absolutely right about the beginning being the best part, but still, like,
Yeah, but and I think what's unique about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I agree with Matt. I think we've mentioned at some point that I think Once Upon in the West is his best movie, but my personal favorite is Once Upon in the West. But I think The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is the better movie, just history of movies, because there's a few sequences there that are also all-time greats. Aside from all the sequences with the shooting of the rope and saving him, the there's the scene in the cemetery when Eli Wallach is running around trying to
Mhm.
find the grave, with the music and the
ecstasy
blurriness,
of gold.
the ecstasy of gold.
Mhm.
Oh my God, that's orgasmic. That scene is like whenever that song comes on my phone, I have to listen to it, the whole thing. And of course the movie is running in my head. It's like
Yeah.
every time I walk in a grocery store and I'm trying to find something, but you can't find it. It's like I start I start walking around
Okay,
and that music
you
is in
just
my
made that a lot funnier than it was a few minutes
yeah.
ago.
Yeah, like I just have that music in my head. And I'm like walking around and like I'm just all blurry, all these like colorful products that I can't find what I'm looking for. And I actually had an idea for like a short that I wanted to do in film school, like something about like somebody looking something in the supermarket, and it was all like Sergio Leone style. But in any case, yeah, and not only that, that's not the best part. The probably the most iconic one is the ending, which is where you want your best scene to be. Is I
Mhm.
don't think there's ever been a better shootout scene than the end of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
It's a pretty great little
Mm.
I
duel.
mean, like when they put that rock on the ground, that song, like, you need to like watch that thing. It's like 7 minutes. That song is really long and nothing happens. All it is just like putting a rock and then like stepping back, the cuts, the this, the that. Like it's amazing. It just shows the power of filmmaking, of editing choices, pacing, shot selection. I mean, it's really that's what's special, like uh, about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That it's sort of like in the Tarantino way, is that maybe as a whole, it's not as cohesive as a story, but every scene is a home run, and some of them are just all-time greats.
Mhm.
And Tarantino definitely is a descendant of Sergio Leone. That's like the best part about it. Most of his movies. I think Pulp Fiction is where he really. Pulp Fiction is sort of like his Once Upon a Time in the West, where like you really just like was firing on all cylinders. But most of his
Yeah.
movies after that are just great sequences. But the whole is not as it doesn't hold together amazingly. It's just that he just really knows how to put a sequence together. Like the one I can think of, like my favorite probably is the one in the basement and the Inglorious
Yeah, I was
Bastards.
gonna say that that one is in a way
Mhm.
almost better than what it's an homage to, or what it's taking from.
Yeah, the tense, like the tension and stuff. But I will say, like, he doesn't and then of course the opening scene with the milk and everything. But it's what Sergio Leone did with visuals, Tarantino does with dialogue. That's why I feel like Sergio Leone was the superior one as far as but Tarantino has great dialogue. He's
Yeah.
doing his own thing. So I respect that.
Mm. Okay,
Yeah.
so since you already took Once Upon a Time in the West from me, I'm going to go for Minority Report
Mm, yeah.
in terms of an opening sequence, and I think I can defend. Well, I don't think I have to defend that it's a good opening sequence. I mean, you're already setting up. Okay, you're starting off the movie with fairly abstract, kind of blurred images. It's very subjective. You're seeing the future the way that we're supposed to see the future for the rest of the movie. You're already setting up the world right away, first frame, and you're witnessing a murder in you're you're witnessing a future murder in a way that is projected as a memory, and it's done so visually without anybody telling you what's going on until later on. And you there is so much packed into the sequence that okay, you're moving into that, and you just get baseline information. Okay, this is pre-crime. What 2059? Jesus, I've seen this movie once a year, every year for the last 20 years, and I still don't remember if it's 2059.
How dare you? Fair. Fair.
Chief John Anderton is walking through pre-crime. The ball drops. Okay, you've got the perpetrator, you got the victim. You don't have the location. They're trying to find the location. You're going through every aspect of what these guys do every day. That there's that there's an imminent murder about to happen. You're getting every bit of information that you need for the rest of the movie. And the amazing thing is at the end of the sequence, through all that tension, through all that build up, through I mean, really non-linear storytelling. They're actually telling you what's going to happen in the future while they're telling you what's happening in the present, leading up to the future, and it converges, and it actually makes an argument for pre-crime in a movie that's all going to actually culminate into whether or not this is the right thing. Like, you have to have that opening sequence in your brain the entire time. Like, a murder was stopped in like mid thrust of the scissors. Like, it was stopped right there. If Tom Cruise did not intervene, this person would have been dead. There is no question. Pre-crime worked. It showed pre-crime working. And then the rest of the movie is deconstructing pre-crime and whether or not it's ethically okay. And of course, the actual filmmaking that went into that opening sequence was masterful. It's Steven Spielberg, it's Janusz Kaminski, it's John Williams, it's whoever the fuck the editor was. It all works in every way, shape, and form. It's all built perfectly, but it also builds the rest of the movie. It sets up the rest of the movie, and you also know everything that you need to know on a baseline in a science fiction story to move along with the story, with the characters, with a minimal amount of here, let's sit down and actually explain to you what the technology is doing or something.
I think that's one of the kind of like key things to think about sometimes is like a lot of opening scenes, and I mean, this could be true for any scene really, but I think it's especially apparent in opening scenes is that they may not be the ones that stick in your mind as like the most memorable, the most flashy, the most amazing, but when a filmmaker can dump a ton of useful information about characters, story, setting, all that stuff, and make it feel like you're not sitting there watching exposition in an opening scene. That's like really clutch.
Well, also Michael Kahn was the editor, which did most of Spielberg's movies. But in any case, but yeah, and another good point I was going to mention about opening scenes is that opening scenes are famous, most of them, a lot of them, in essentially telling the story of the movie in a nutshell. In a way, like you say with Minority Report, Spielberg does this a lot. Like Jurassic Park, what is the opening scene?
Yeah,
It's about the
Dinosaur
cage
gets out.
malfunctioning and not containing the shoot her. So it's basically a microcosm of the movie. Like it sets up what's gonna be, like it's like a short film of what the rest of the movie is gonna be. That's gonna expand upon, and sometimes, of course, it's just establishing. Character and location, but the more I've watched movies, the more I realize, like, wow, this is actually pretty consistent. It's like at least 50% of movies, the first scene is a microcosm. And whatchamacallit, Duck You Sucker. Now Jaws too, yes, to some degree for sure. Duck You Sucker, there's a in the opening scene, there's
Mhm.
somebody peeing on a like heap of sand with a bunch of ants on it, and
Mm,
is basically saying how like the rich are like peeing on the small guy, because the whole movie's about revolutions
yeah.
and how the people at the top always gain from revolutions, the people on the bottom always yeah, so like the a person peeing on ants is essentially a microcosm of the whole movie, so stuff like that. um well, what about you, Jason? Do you have any memorable sequences or
Several. Yeah. I think easily one of the very best ever is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
yeah, the opening? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, that's the one, yeah,
We are
with
talking
the
about
ball
openings.
rolling
Yeah.
ball. Well, I mean, are we? Because I thought like it could be just generally sequences, but I guess yeah, if we focus on openings, then we can do another episode about it. Because I did mention like the good, the bad, and the ugly about sequences within the movies, but
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think we were doing opening sequences and then
Well, either way, it's
yeah,
fine.
either way,
I
it's not a big deal. Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to know because I could think of other ones.
Obviously, the ones I wrote down as like some of my favorites were Raiders of the Lost Ark, Touch of Evil, and
uh,
then talking about what Matt was just talking about, being able to condense tons of important information into a one awesome opening sequence. Serenity, it has a fantastic opening sequence.
mhm.
I guess the Dark Knight would also come up on a lot
I
of
was
people's
gonna Yeah,
list
I was
in the
gonna make
modern
that.
age.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
we obviously have to mention, for totally different reasons, Star Wars.
yeah, that's true. The first one.
Yeah. I mean, the ship flying overhead and all that stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a big one. So
Um,
we're focusing on
Up.
opening. I'm trying to think. Up is definitely a big one for sure. That's
Yep.
very memorable.
I mean, it's
Um,
like you could cut
Yeah,
after Up, and it's like a short film right there.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean that could have just been one of those short films that Disney puts in front of all their movies at this point. I mean, they're
So
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. That just ripped my heart out. Um,
If we're going to talk about opening scenes, though, um, even though many of them are not great, um, you know, uh, the James Bond films all have an opening scene, and I would say that Casino Royale and GoldenEye are both very good.
oh yeah, I mean Casino Royale with the whole black and white
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and if you want to
sequence
count
of
it as a sequence, you could even say all that whole first opening thing. That it's pretty long, but it's good.
I think that Casino Royale, we might actually want to focus on that black and white sequence.
Sure.
Yeah, at the very beginning, not only as uh, just an opening sequence for a movie, but as an opening sequence for we're doing something different now.
Yeah. As
You
a
know,
statement.
like just letting you know. I mean, the last Pierce Brosnan movie came out. We're aware of the entire history of Bond. This is a new Bond movie. This is dark as fuck. It's grainy. It's black and white. And you're just going to watch Bond slam a guy's face through a bathroom sink and break the sink. And uh and then murder a guy. This is what Bond's going to be for a little while. And it's just set up right then and there. And putting it in black and white is actually kind of an elegant way of doing it. You know, like if it were color, I don't think that people would have bought in as quickly. Black and white, you're not used to seeing it.
I think it was the right choice.
Yeah, it was totally the right choice. Like gritty, grimy. visceral.
Um,
Bang, bang, bang. Yeah.
I was going to make a joke when we first started talking about opening scenes and opening sequences, because I was going to say, like, I don't know if we were talking about just scenes or sequences or just opening shots, but I was going to say, like, I think the opening shot in 1917 is outstanding.
Opening shot. Yeah, 'cause it's the whole thing. I mean, it's technically not the whole thing, but
Well, even if it's only the first half, it's still
it
an
cuts to, like,
outstanding
halfway. Yeah.
It's still a pretty outstanding shot.
I actually was going to bring up Boogie Nights, though.
Oh, I
Yeah,
can't remember
Boogie Nights
what's
is
the opening
definitely a
on that.
big
I can't
one.
remember.
Well, it's like the tracking shot, the
Oh yeah. I remember now.
the
That's
not tracking, but just like the Steadicam shot.
yeah.
Yeah, coming off the crane and into the club and
Mm-hmm.
Introduces you to like 90% of the characters in the entire movie and
Yeah.
does it in
yeah,
like
very
what
daring.
6 minutes.
Although I will say, as far as PTA, I think There Will Be Blood, the opening sequence to that one, is probably my favorite modern
Where he's
opening
mining?
sequence.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like 10, 15 minutes before there's a line of dialogue. And again, the microcosm of the movie is this guy like chiseling away in the middle of nowhere with nobody around, chiseling at the American dream, basically. And you know, falls down, breaks his leg, and finds a way to get out or something. It's about him, like, being in the, metaphorically, and the depths of, like, despair, but climbing his way up to success, like to live, to succeed. That scene is basically the whole movie. Like that sequence, it's really something special, and I think to some degree underrated, because it's very understated. um
Sure.
the
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
think There Will Be Blood is still strangely underrated. Just
What?
as I don't know, we're more than a decade after its release. I just don't think that people are. I don't think that it's met with the same reverence that it should be.
Hmm.
But I mean, I still feel that way about No Country for Old Men, which came out the same year. I still
Yeah.
feel that way about a lot of movies, but uh, yeah, that sequence at a visceral level, you should be able to just watch that scene, especially if you're in the cinema, and watch Daniel Day-Lewis, watch the images on the screen, and listen to the music, and your stomach should be doing something to you. It's not even about your brain. It's just you should be feeling something that whole time. Your shoulders should be tensing up. Like you should be shifting. You should. If you're a human being watching that scene, it should be doing something to you at a gut level.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
um
yeah,
yeah, a few other ones is like Drive is one that I can think of that had a very tense opening scene. Also Children of Men,
oh geez, yeah.
Yeah.
the coffee shop.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The in it, it's funny because you were talking about like the microcosm. Like the opening scene should kind of be like the whole story in a nutshell, kind of thing.
Mhm.
A very misleading opening scene, but a very, very good one, is Scream.
Yeah, it came
Like
up on some of these lists as
it
as
sets
one of
you
the.
up
I
as
barely
like,
remember it, but
what? Oh
I
man, it's so
just
good.
I
it,
remember it being inadequate. I'm just not a big horror fan, but yeah.
you remember the last really good movie that Shane Black made, The Nice Guys, the one with Russell
Oh,
Crowe and Ryan Gosling. He got like this like long scene of the kid, this kid who's not even a character in the movie, but he's like stealing a porno mag from his dad, and it's all in one shot, you know, and he's going in the middle of the night to this thing, and then a car, he's looking at the porno mag and the girl on it, and the car smashes through his entire house in this epic, you know, destructive car crash. And he goes to check on the car crash, and it's like, you know, it's the girl from the magazine he's holding in his hand, and she's been flung out of the car, and she's naked on a rock, posed in the exact same pose that she is in the in the magazine. And like, and then she starts saying things that are like relevant to the story before she dies. And it's just like a outrageous scene.
That's definitely
mm,
these pop up again and again. I mean, you know, some lists also bring up 2001, The Dawn of Men, the
Oh
whole
yeah,
thing with
well, of course.
but that's a
yeah,
very long sequence. But I guess that's true because the Once Upon a Time in the West, if you take those two scenes together, we said like 10, 20 minutes. So
yeah.
yeah, I guess it sort of works for sure.
Yeah, I, I,
There's
I think the I think the only reason why people like the three of us wouldn't bring the Dawn of Man up, from 2001 is that it's too obvious.
Well, I know definitely. I mean, you know what I
It's,
was gonna say is just the opening music with
yeah.
the planets and stuff. Like just that alone to me is one of the greatest. It's so audacious. Like it's just like I've got balls. You know,
Yeah.
it's like that whole like I'm gonna like put this bombastic music and then I'm gonna live up to it. Like I'm basically challenging myself to tell you this is gonna be a monumental movie. Like you need to have some serious balls, you know, to put that kind of music and say like, you know,
Yeah.
and then like spend the next 2.5 hours living up to that. You know, it's just yeah. I guess the Pulp Fiction, the
the
robbery,
diner.
the
I thought
diner,
about
like
that. I thought about that. That's so. This is almost like a whole nother category we can talk about. But that one and a bunch of other ones I had thought about are like, they may not be the most memorable or the most incredible, but they use that technique where it's like you're starting with a scene that's like in the middle or towards the end of the movie, and it works really well as an opening scene, and then the narrator or whoever, or if there is a narrator at all, sometimes there isn't, but then you rewind back to show how we get there, and then like an hour later you catch back up to that scene again.
yeah. No, it's definitely. I wonder if it's part of the reason why he kind of ordered things that way is because that scene is so good, and then you
Maybe.
can kind of work your way to it, and you jumble down the other scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
um
Godfather 2 comes up as you know,
mm,
that's a big one. I mean, yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely something special. That whole movie, I feel like, is one big sequence in some ways. I definitely like so like I'm sure Tarantino got to owe a little bit to that movie too. It's like what you don't realize in The Godfather is like those some of those scenes are so long but so captivating.
Yeah.
Some of those sequences, which is like Tarantino is big on that. Like, and then you go to
Mhm.
film school, it's like your scenes shouldn't be more than like 2 to 4 pages, or like 22 pages, unless you know how to write, and then they can be 10 pages. Um,
um
If you
you
can
know,
write dialogue, it's yeah.
you were mentioning the longer opening sequences where you almost question if it still counts as an opening sequence, you know, kind of thing. Two of those that I really love, particularly because of the amazing action, but also just that it's an awesome start to the movie. But John Carpenter's Vampires and True Lies both have outstanding opening sequences. They're just like 25 minutes long, probably.
yeah, exactly. This is like those openings that kind of go on for a bit.
Yeah.
I feel like in that category, I would also put probably the best opening of a Marvel movie is the Guardians of the Galaxy. Um, opening sequence with the music and everything, and
Yeah, that's a good one.
A Clockwork Orange too. Again, it's not a scene per se, but it's kind of like a whole sequence of how they set up the whole crew and what they do each night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's opening scenes are definitely interesting.
One that's crucial, not just because of the action and how it sets up characters and all these other things that we've talked about before, but the opening of Team America, World Police, like the way it starts on the marionettes, and then it goes into the marionette, like it zooms out, and it's marionettes using marionettes, and then that scene, not only is it clever, it really helps you as the audience go, oh, look at how big this is going to be. Like you see sets, you see the world.
Yeah, you're like, is this going to be the movie?
Yeah, and it's very impressive. It's very smart.
I also love the alleged story about when they were screening it for the studio execs. And that first shot showed up and somebody just yelled, "They fucked us!"
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Just before they pull out and reveal the whole thing.
It's like it's gonna be a whole movie with a bunch of like puppets with strings. Yeah, that movie is quite special for sure. If you want to talk underrated movies, I mean, I don't know if it's underrated, but like that
no,
movie.
I think it is.
Like it's very, very special.
Oh, it's so good.
It's still quotable for people who are over the age of 30 and have a sense of humor.
Yeah, I think a few of Mel Brooks movies had like decent openings where like
I was trying to think of Mel Brooks
the Spaceballs with the nod to Star Wars and the ship that never ends.
Yeah.
See, that's good. What a good way to do a parody is to do what the other one did and then say something about it. Like that's just hilarious. Like, that ship is so long, it's ridiculous.
Or the one with the Men in Tights where they're like shooting like at the village with the fiery arrows, and it's like, why is it every time that there's like another Mel Brooks movies, they have to burn down our village? There's gotta be another way to do an opening credit scene.
Yeah, because Prince of Thieves had that where they'd show a name and then a flaming arrow would hit it and it would burn it away, and then it would show another name and so on and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. So here they burned a village, and they're like, and the whole sequence ends with like, "Leave us alone, Mel Brooks," something like that. Yeah, he definitely had a few.
People don't talk enough about Robin Hood Men in Tights. I mean, like, I think that his stuff like Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles definitely gets a lot of respect for those movies, but like Men in Tights doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, no, it feels like Spaceballs and Men in Tights are of the ilk that like they're not as bad as Dracula Dead and Loving It. That was just like a bit too much, too absurd. Yeah. But they're not great movies for their own sake, like Young Frankenstein, like Blazing Saddles. They're just very good spoofs. They don't go full bad, but they also are kind of silly. But within them, there's some great like like I said, the Dom DeLuise like Godfather thing, and there's like some, and then Dave Chappelle was like the Achoo, like so some of the ideas there, like lend me your ears. Yeah. Like some of the jokes and of course Spaceballs for me, like even though I cannot laugh at anything in that movie anymore because I've seen it way too many times, more than any other movie in history, probably over 100 times as a kid. It still takes the top prize for me for like the quantity of jokes per minute is just off the charts. Like I don't think it's ever been matched, even in Jim Carrey movies. Like it's just so much crammed into like you gotta respect it for that
Yeah,
alone.
yeah.
I
But you're
just
telling me if you rewatch Spaceballs right now, and then they have that stupid like third grader joke play on words where they get down to the desert and he's like, we're combing the desert, and the guys are carrying like 8-foot long combs, and then they go to the black guy and he's got a hair pick, and he's like, you find anything yet? And he goes, man, we ain't found shit.
No, I'm
You
sure I
can't
would.
tell me you don't laugh at that.
Well, if I were to watch it alone, I might laugh. But if I watch it with the right company, that might
Yeah.
be a good challenge. Like maybe next time we meet, we should watch it together. Just for that, we should do a double feature of Men in Tights and.
Oh, that would be a good
I
double feature.
I just love that in Spaceballs they managed to sneak in an F word in a PG rated movie.
I don't even remember that.
Oh yeah, like
the
fuck,
cancellation
even
button.
in this,
Fuck.
yeah, even in the future, nothing works. Yeah, no, there's some really inspired comedy there. It's funny, and that is an interesting contrast to like the Jim Carrey, Mike Myers thing. That's more actor character driven, where performance driven, where this is just gags, like left and
Yeah.
right gags that just really work. There's some performance stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, and yeah, Rick Moranis, like it's just something else in that movie.
What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken? Prepare the ship! Prepare the ship for ludicrous speed! Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
definitely like long nights of watching those Mel Brooks movies. And I remember like when I was like as I was getting older and I don't know, talking to people about them and girlfriends and whatnot, realized like, oh, I guess like not a lot of people like him that much, like his movies. Like they kind of feel like when I would show it to people, they would just say that it's very like kind of wooden jokes, like just very silly and absurd and broad. But I really never felt like I don't know how I always felt like it was one level up on all those other spoof comedies, even though there's some good ones. I mean, I like Hot Shots. I like some of those other ones, but
Yeah.
but to me, like it's like 4 or 5 of Mel Brooks's movies. Nothing for me as far as spoofing goes. Nothing touches those as far as quality.
If you're not a Jew, you're not a comedian.
That's true. I mean, technically, yeah, Zucker and like, yeah, those are, although Farrelly brothers are not Jewish. I don't believe so.
They're probably Jew adjacent, or like
It's Mike Myers. I think Mike Myers might be something Jewish. I wonder, actually. Probably
there's
not.
probably some Ashkenazi in him, or I don't
Maybe,
know.
yeah. But it is funny that like if we really when you think about it, like Mike Myers and Jim Carrey like, both like basically ruled the 90s.
Yeah.
Both Canadians. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, those Canadians.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess we went off topic.
You have to be oppressed in order to be funny, and God knows Canadians are oppressed right now, and the Jews have always been oppressed. They're funny. Black people have been oppressed. They're funny. Canadians are oppressed. They're funny. White cisgender straight Americans are not oppressed. We're not funny.
Louis C.K. is very funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Dumb and Dumber for a comedy has a pretty good opening sequence too.
Oh yeah.
Something with the I think it's the airport and stuff. And
yeah, there's that, and I guess you don't really meet Harry until after all that sequence is done, huh?
Yeah, he's got like a whole sequence there.
The
like,
furry dog, the dog car and everything, that all comes along.
Dog car. Yeah.